Okay. Brian, you are up first, alphabetically speaking.
Da, 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 da.
Where is Brian? Oh, we not joined yet. I have to jump back. No, we don't have Brian yet. Okay, I'll see if he joins. Otherwise, Derek, I know you're here, and I think I got these in the right order.
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay. Well, guys, the challenge is for you to tell me what you're looking at.
Oh God.
It's long and curved and dark blue. I'm actually Yeah. The clues are on the masking papers.
So it's Blue Angels, the support plane they have.
Yep, it's Blue
they call it
Angels
Guppy or something?
Constellation.
Oh,
Oh wow, that's going back.
And this is the Heller kit, which needs a whole lot of tender loving care to make it presentable. So I've done the blue part, and the blue that you can see on the screen is what I'm going to spray yellow. So that's what the masking is all about. And both the blue and the yellow are industrial lacquer paints, and you know what they're like. They're hot. They do all sorts of things you don't want them to do. And if we can go to the next picture, I can show you after.
nice. Ooh, that's nice.
That's nice.
So far, so good. And remember, this is a big model. This is in 72 scale. So it's pretty big. So the silver on the engine cowlings has been taped and masked and painted, as well as the black on the wings. And but if you look at the yellow stripe on the fuselage, you'll see that there's bits and pieces where it is completely irregular, like there and back at the curve. And I thought, well, I'm not going to mask the yellow now and spray blue, because I will have exactly the opposite problem, but just as big a problem as before. So what I decided to do was get clear decal strip, spray it with the blue paint, put strips of the blue decal paint, blue decal paint alongside the yellow right up to it, to just cover the irregular parts and make it as straight as possible. So that was what I did with that. If we go to the next picture, now I'm back in deep water. All of the black de-icing rubber strips on the leading edges are decals, which I found in some obscure decal set for the Constellation. Heller's kit will not give you a set of rubber de-icing strip decals, and you have to find that online somewhere, which I did. So all of the black is decals. Then I decided this black de-icing strip stuff is too black and it's too glossy. So here I am taking the labor of masking all of the de-icing strip, including the curved parts that you can see on the tail planes, to spray them with a lighter, a more gray stuff, because rubber is gray, it's not black. So I sprayed it with a gray, and then to my horror, I decided it's too light. So I had to get rid of all my gray de-icing stuff and go back to black. So the finished product now is a pretty dark, unconvincing looking black rubber. But I decided, well, I'm not going to go by that path again. You see, I've also masked the anti-glare strip on the nose and the radome to lighten up the gray, but that didn't work particularly well either. So that was as far as I got when I took these pictures, and I've actually done it now. So next time I will show you some pics of the completed kit. Thank God it's finished. I'm not going to labor with that anymore. If you look in the top of this picture, you'll see the 4 propellers. Yeah. I had them in gloss metal finish, and when I put them on the model, they just overwhelmed it. They just visually they looked too big. And then I sprayed them with a semi-gloss coat, and visually they seem to fit right. Whereas with a gloss coat, they didn't seem to fit right before. So if we can just go back to the second picture.
Here.
Yeah, so that's a happier picture than the one you just saw. Since then, I've put all the decals on, all the Blue Angels decals, and I had to source them from eBay and various places online. Some of them, the yellow didn't match properly. Others disintegrated spectacularly. And it's such a dark blue background that I actually had to put a decal on and then double decal, if you know what I mean. I had to put 2 layers of decal for the yellow to look bright enough.
Yeah.
So that was my project at that stage. As I said, I finished it now, and next month I'll show you some pics of the finished product. It was maybe almost a step too far.
Derek, it's supposed to be a hobby, you know, eh?
I know.
Can I add?
By the way, though, your finish is really, really totally stellar. I can see the reflection in the blue. What did you use?
It's an industrial blue which I got from Home Depot by the name of Bright Blue. But as I say, it's lacquer. It's probably a car paint, and it is extremely glossy. I then started coating it also with lacquer gloss finishes for the decals, and guess what happened? The paint started to orange peel on me.
Oh no! Oh no!
You guys don't know all the details.
But it looks great in the photo here.
Yeah, right now it does. So after the orange peeling, I had to sand down the crazed parts, spray it again very gently. So I kind of got back to this kind of finish. And I then gloss coated it before and after the decals. After the decals, I put 4 coats of semi-gloss because I want to bring down the shine. But it is still extremely shiny. But I said, okay, the battle is lost and won, and I'm done. So I put it the other side, and that was the end of that. If you notice, the windows are open, and I like my windows to be see-through rather than blackouts. So when everything is done, I will turn the model up on its side and put liquid resin into each of the window holes. Give it 48 hours, 72 hours to dry. Then I turn it over the other side and do the windows on the other side. It's
you don't have to use liquid resin. You can use weld bond glue.
Yeah, I've tried many substances that are supposed to solidify clear, but some of them have a cloudy look. Some of them look like if you use super glue, you can see the internal architecture of the super glue. So I settle for resin, which is extremely slow, but that's the best result I've had. Anyway,
Derek, what do you mean by resin, quote? Is it urethane resin, polyester resin, or epoxy resin?
I think it's epoxy resin. It comes as part A and part B, and you mix and then you fill in.
You won't get it to sit there because there's nothing holding it from falling through.
It will sink and depress.
Right.
So you're first putting in the resin, you end up with a sunken window. Then after that is dry, 48 hours later, you add in another drop of resin. The intention being to make the window flat, visually flat, not convex, but flat. So it's another undertaking. Anyway, that's where I was then, and I'll show you finished pics next time.
If you want something to try for resins, try using, there's a UV cure resin I use at the store.
Is that the UV curing glue?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a UV curing glue, but it's used for jewelry, for doing domes on jewel pieces.
Okay, I'll look for it because I have tried the UV curing thing called Bondic.
No, it's not Bondic. It's a different resin.
Because the Bondic stuff, sure, it's solidified within seconds, but it looked awful as a pane glass window. So I'm with the resin, and I'll go and look for the stuff you told me about anyway. It's sorry?
Yeah, I was going to say, I can make a little suggestion. I'm experimenting with this sort of thing right now. I don't have all the answers by any stretch, but on YouTube, I found a guy who is building models and making clear windows. And it's incredible the way the guy does it. So he takes the fuselage, paints it all white, like the side, puts a piece of tape across it, goes on the backside, pours in the part A, part B resin, epoxy clear resin mixed up, layers it in, lets it dry. And then the tape that's on the outside, it's white underneath, or the color of the fuselage. Then he goes and puts the two halves together, something to that effect, and then builds it, and then paints all white, pulls the tape off, gives it a rub down, and his windows are done.
Yeah, I had a similar idea where you start from the inside out rather than from the outside in, but I haven't got around to that. So my technique right now is to put drops of resin in, let it solidify, and then add more till it's flat.
So wonderful.
Yeah, the only thing I'll
Wonderful.
tell you
Great
about
looking
the
model.
Cure glue is make sure
Sorry?
the only thing I'll say about the UV Cure glue is make sure that the UV flashlight you have, there's 2 frequencies. You can get the ultraviolet LEDs.
Oh,
But make
I
sure
didn't know that.
fresh batteries, because they'll go through batteries faster than a standard LED will.
All right, so next time I'll show you the finished product.
Derek, what brand of paint is that? That's he says a Home Depot brand.
Yes, I bought it off the shelf at Home Depot. I'm sure it's an auto body paint, and it is a lacquer paint.
It's in a can, or
it's in a large aerosol spray can.
Check for that. Looks pretty good. That's a good model. Nice and shine.
Well, so at that point, so far, so good.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's move along. I think up next, Jonathan, I'll put you at the end with the Noriscon discussion, and we'll go over to Mark and then
Robotech.
Hello. Yes, this is Robotech. So it's actually so Macross is the original Japanese name for the show.
Yep.
At least the English
Thank
translation.
you.
Which was a cartoon or anime that I remember very fondly when I was younger. This is a Zentradi tactical pod. This is what came down to Earth to attack us at first. This is a Bandai kit, an older one. So well, not that old, 2010. But to be honest, when I was building it, it felt like the molds must be old, because I basically spent weeks and weeks trying to repair seam lines with this thing. It was both of the legs, it was just a seam line from the top to the bottom, same with the main body. But I managed eventually to get it, reasonable. And then, so this is mostly airbrush with acrylics. These are acrylics base coats, and then weathering almost, I think, mostly with oils, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Here, one of the things I was playing with was seeing what it would look like if I was using, doing colder colors as my base, but with warmer sort of filters and oils on top of it. And so I played with that. I also played with how dry brushing with acrylics versus lacquers is a very different experience. And so here I was dry brushing with lacquers, and I enjoyed that a lot, actually. It gave me, I was wondering, how was I going to weather this? It's not armor, and so or something similar, and I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but in the end, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, the base is really nice, Mark. It's quite complementary to the model, the colors.
Thank you. That took me a while.
Yeah.
So the base was, I had seen these rolling pins. The Green Stuff World sells these rolling pins that you can use. They're meant for miniatures. The bases that people use for their miniatures, or Warhammer miniatures or whatever.
Oh, cool.
And I think usually these rolling pins, they're only they're about 6 inches long. They're about an inch in diameter. They're meant to usually just make small little circles that are maybe 2 inches in diameter. So I was like, can I use this to make something that's as wide as the pin. I wasted a little bit of money trying different materials and a lot of failed experiments. I tried green stuff, and I tried milliput, and then I ended up being happiest with DAS, air hardening clay. It worked out the best I found. And it's not perfectly flat, but it's, I was happy enough. And yeah, I got the tiles, some of the tiles, the panels, different colors by just putting an enamel filter on some of them. I bought a bunch of those filters, and I was playing around with filters, and I made a rusty pipe just because I thought the orange would be a nice counterpoint to the blue.
Nice touch. Very nice.
And, that was it. I had a lot of fun with this one. And it's memories for me because of, growing up with Robotech.
Beautiful work. All right, thank you, Mark. Mauricio, I see you are on. Hope these come through in the right order, but yeah, let's start with this. This one's got a good story.
There is a bit of a story. Good evening, guys. Yeah, so I got two subjects tonight, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background story because I think it certainly touched me. So on my birthday was early April, was April 4th, and my wife had asked me, what would you like for your birthday? So I kind of, it was a model I was after. I sent her a link, and I'll show you what the model is in a minute. And I didn't even sort of think that this was coming from Ukraine. And sure enough, the package shows up, and it showed up after, Russia had invaded. And the stamp on that thing was the 17th of February. And I think the invasion happened on the 24th. And we certainly got it a lot later than that. So it was, I kept the packaging, obviously. It just kind of sort of brought it home for us. The fact that, you have all these people that are trying to live normal lives, making nice kits, designers, engineers, and so on and so forth. And these are people like us. And they suddenly find themselves in a really tragic situation. So it was quite meaningful to me. Do you want to turn to the next Eric?
There we go.
That's the model is the one is the bomb itself. So this is the Tsar bomba, which is the largest device ever exploded. It was a close to a 56 megaton device. It was exploded in 1961 by the Russians. Of course, at the time, once again, the relevance wasn't quite as, unfortunately, as meaningful as it might be now in terms of a nuclear weapon. But there was a very interesting, I would highly recommend it. There's a Soviet documentary that was just declassified a year ago. You can find it on YouTube, and takes you through the whole history of, it shows you all the preparations when they actually detonated the weapon. So they loaded it on one of those Tu-144s, those massive strategic bombers. It's a huge, I think it weighs something like 60 or 70 tons. It's a massive device, and they exploded it way north of Siberia. And there's, I don't know all the stats, but if you look it up on Wikipedia, for instance, you'll see that glass was blown as far as 900 kilometers from the detonation point. It was unbelievable.
The nuclear cloud went round the world 5 times, and it's what convinced the Russians to stop going bigger.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Maurizio, it looked like they borrowed the design from a big lawn dart.
Yeah, well, you know what? Actually, what's interesting about this is it was detonated at 4,000 meters above sea level, but it was slowed down. If you see at the back, that's actually a parachute. So that's a parachute housing, because when the plane dropped it, they wanted to slow it down so the plane would have enough time to get away. It dropped it at, I don't know, it was 40,000 feet. And the pilots had to wear these really dark goggles not to get blinded by the flash and so on and so forth. So it was really sort of it's an epic kind of from a technology perspective. So the kit comes with the bomb and the tractor that holds it. It's from a model from Ukraine, and I actually ended up having one of these MAZ 537 tractors, which I had from Tacom. That's 1/72nd, by the way. That's the scale. And so it just so happened that it was convenient for me to put that tractor to tow the bomb.
That's really nice.
It is.
Yeah, I like the label you put there to describe it.
Yeah, same here.
Maurizio, how did you do on the cab? You have the demarcation of the camo, almost like a World War I tank. How did you do that?
Do you want to flip to the next one? Because that shows it a bit closer as well. Yeah, so that's a closer shot of the tractor. So demarcation really, it's just marker. It's black marker, and then if you put enough sort of flat coats on top of that, it takes out that kind of shiny, almost purpley. You know, sometimes if you use marker, even though it's supposed to be black, it almost has a purple shine to it.
Yeah, never seen any volume on this anywhere.
So that was that subject. I kind of enjoyed the kit. It's an interesting kit because it's unusual. It's one of those. It's kind of like a kit in a way, in the sense that.
Did you do it?
In the sense that you know, the sprues are very thick. The where it joins the parts, the moldings are not totally crisp. But it's well fitting. It's not a terribly complicated kit to put together. That's for sure. Not a ton of parts. So it was kind of fun. And again, the subject is quite impressive. And I would highly recommend for you guys to go, if you're interested in it, go on YouTube and do Tsar Bomba. And there's lots of smaller videos. There'll be 3-4 minutes showing the actual drop and the detonation. But the one that's really interesting is the Soviet one. You can put the auto captions in English, and even if you don't really, you know, listen to the whole narration, the images are really quite striking, because it'll take you through from the very beginning when they load the bomb, where they built it onto a truck and move it over to the plane, and the plane takes off, and you know, the whole the countdown and everything else. So very interesting subject. Unfortunately.
How did you do the dust on the windshields, may I ask?
Yeah, you know what? That's actually so easy. So what I do, they cut a, you know, I use one of these rotary alpha cutter, okay, with the right diameter. So I'll cut a semicircle on tape. Usually it's the Tamiya tape. And then the dust, all it is, it's a light coat of flat, clear flat. So that is enough to give you that sort of cloudy sense, and without really like totally obliterating that. And I think it always brings out a little bit of interest. That's why I do it. It just gives it a bit more interest, just showing that piece of it. So I tend to do it on all the windshields.
That's very nicely done.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to ask a question about camouflage on 1/72nd scale. I dared to try doing it last weekend, my first time, and I was doing it by hand. And I'm wondering whether that was a mistake, and I should have started by using putty. Any advice?
Yeah, you know what? I think the so I sprayed the grain. I do think that. I'm trying to remember now, because I did that tractor a while back, like well before the bomb. But I think I might have actually hand painted it. The key is you got to use, I use at least, the Vallejo acrylics, not the Model Air, the other ones. Okay. You can do it, it comes out really, really nice if you do it thin coats, even by brush. Like, you're not going to see brush marks or things like that. I did a whole King, I think it was a King Tiger, or anyways, a 1/35th scale. I did it all by hand one time because I just didn't want to bother with the master. It was almost more complicated. And I took a chance. And with the Vallejo, once you spray a bunch of, you know, gloss and flat, et cetera, the finished product is actually, you couldn't tell it's handmade.
So this is hand brushed.
Yeah, I think the camo, like the light blue, I think, if I remember correct, because I didn't. Sometimes I don't want to bother with the masking.
Yeah.
Masking can be almost a bigger pain in the ass, quite frankly. So So once in a while, sometimes I'll go through it, and other times I say, I'll give it a chance. Again, I'm not 100% sure on this one if it was hand or it was mask, because it was a while back, but I know that for sure. Sorry, it was a yak tater that I did. I did a 3-tone camo, and that was all hand brush, and it turns out really well. You couldn't tell.
My problem right now is though that the same model I wanted to airbrush lacquers for the first time, and so I'm not so sure about trying to hand brush lacquers on top of lacquer primer and so forth.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah, no,
Don't do it.
I know. That's it.
No, you can't.
So, yeah, I can't.
Even to me, it's horrible to hand brush. You can't do it. Like
No.
Yeah.
No. Those Gen 3 paints are really nice by AK for hand painting. Really.
Oh yeah.
Or I use these guys, the model colors from Vallejo's.
Yeah.
These are beautiful. Like it's unbelievable how well, if you properly thin them, they just flow so nicely. They don't leave any mark. They dry flat. They totally flatten out. They're really. So you should give it a try, because it frees you up from having to always use an airbrush on smaller detail.
Hey, you know, something for you guys to think about, just for fun, maybe in a future meeting sometime down the road. Wouldn't it be cool if we did like a mini contest online where you can't use an airbrush to paint your model? You gotta you gotta use hand painted paints. Just think about it. Think about it, guys. Think about it. Hey, very nice.
Airbrush. I'm a hand painter.
Yeah.
He'll do really small stuff.
Yeah. Very nicely done. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Hey, I do have a question about ordering online from any Ukrainian company today. My wife told me that if you place an order and you pay, you don't really get anything that you order. They're just, your money just being treated as just a supporting effort. So you get nothing from Ukraine. Is that right?
I wouldn't know. I mean, I got, obviously this was shipped before this whole thing went down. So I don't know if, you know what, turns out I actually, interesting you say that, because a while back I'd actually order something from eBay from some guy that, you know, they have eBay stores. So this guy has a store, and he was Ukrainian, and he's a guy that when he sends you stuff, it will give you actually a bunch of candy. I don't know if you guys ever. This guy.
I've ordered from him.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Great. Yeah.
So apparently, like I wrote him like maybe a week or two ago, and I said, hey, you know, just, you know, me and somebody else were reminiscing this, et cetera, et cetera. How are you doing? It's still all right. It was still okay, and it was still shipping.
Good.
So I think it depends, you know, like if you're in the East versus the West.
Yeah.
You know, it probably depends, but it's probably fairly unreliable, I would imagine.
Yeah, Anthony, I've ordered, and it's taken a while, but it has gotten to me. So
yeah, I recently ordered just before the war. They were holding it up to get one kit, and then when the war started, I was thinking, just use the friggin' money. I don't care.
Yeah.
So I ordered the 2 kits I wanted out of Winnipeg and paid a lot. And a week ago, I got a message from Kyiv that it's been shipped. So I said to him, I'm glad to hear you're okay. I said, I'm willing to pay for some of those stamps with the soldier and the vessel in the background. And I said, I'll give you $100 for a set, because I'd rather give it to you than somebody on eBay. And he said, no, we'll just try and send you a set for free, because they're hard to get right now.
So I drove back from Noriscon with a Ukrainian model, and he lives in Brooklyn now, but he said that Mini Art had moved their molds and everything to Kiev. So they're trying their best to keep production going. And then again, you don't really know whether what you're hearing is true or not.
Yeah.
Well, you know, one thing I did hear was there was an artist, and don't ask me the name because I forget. There's an artist that did a lot of the artwork for some of, I don't know if he was ICM or
Rodin, I think. Yeah.
Rodin.
Yeah, the guy died.
Yeah, he died. He was killed. So I mean, it's horrible. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Oh, another one.
Yeah, so this is my next project. Now, so this one was the first version. The one I did was number 2, which was at 75 or thereabouts. This was actually built back in the 50s. And I found one, most of them were orange, but I found this one, which was used a lot later even. And I just love the colors. Don't love maybe the Russia, but so be it. And you know, I just love the look of this vehicle. So I'm doing this one right now. I'm in the middle of it. So if you want to move to the next one. So one thing that I use actually is this is just so that you know, I mean, you probably, some of you may have tried this or not, but I was going to, because of the complexity of some of the designs, I was going to actually make some masks, right? Try to make some masks rather than having to have all those decals being made from custom. So I saw this actually in a store recently, and it was listed for like under 200. It's a brand new one. It's pretty small. You can see there, it's like what, about maybe 6 inches wide. So it, you know, it's not huge. I don't have a ton of space. So it looked good. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. I ordered it. It was 169 from Best Buy shipped. I got it. And the idea was originally, like I said, making masks with frisket or whatever. And then I thought, I wonder if I can try and cut styrene with this as well. Because I saw on YouTube, some of the bigger ones can cut styrene. So I gave it a try, and you have to use one of their mats. And, you know, it took me a while because you got to deal with some software, you got to learn it, but it's all fairly simple. And so I actually tried it, and the reason why is because, especially when you get into ovals, the rounds are okay. The ovals I find very challenging to cut well if you're doing it by hand. It's just tough to even draw it properly, even if you have curves, etc. It's not an easy thing to deal with. So I was kind of bummed out, and I was stalling the project. And then when I got this thing, I said, let's see if this works. And it worked amazing. Like what it does basically is it scores it. But if you tell it, you know, I'm using, let's say, it doesn't have styrene as the material, but it's got some 80-pound board, for instance, or press board or whatever you call it. So you use that, and you tell it, you know, you want a bit more pressure on the blade. And if you tell it to go over the cut repeatedly, like I did it, in this case, I did it 3 times, and then I did some others, I did it 4 times. So it will repeat the cut 4 times. Once you get your piece out, it's fairly simple to just kind of bend it and snap the pieces out. And suddenly you've got, you know, some of the complex shapes are no longer really a big issue. And on the software, you can specify, you know, down to the 10th of the millimeter length and sizes and relative positions of each of those cuts, et cetera. So you can be very precise and get something very quickly out that looks, you know, looks really good. So I was extremely happy, and you know, that kind of got me back into the project, and I was able to get going with that.
Thickness of styrene did you use?
Yeah, so I used for the sidewalls 0.01 inch or 0.4 millimeter. So that's fairly thin. It's not super. It's not the thinnest, but you need to reinforce it. Like you got to put spanners at the back in order to make sure you got some rigidity. Otherwise it'll flex too much. But once you do that, it's perfect. And there is another advantage actually. If you move to the next one. Like the advantage of that styrene, the reason I used this to begin with was because on my first one, the first model I did, similar to this one, I had to get that riveting right. I hated the decals idea, et cetera, and I didn't want to do sunk rivets. So I ended up, by mistake, I was trying my riveting wheel and noticed that if I had it on one side, on the other side, they would pop out. So it gave you that kind of buckle look. So if you do it with thin styrene, you can get that effect where you get these rivets, which are really sort of sunk rivets on the other side. And if you do it any thicker, you probably wouldn't be able to do that. So it's, you know, it was going to be that thickness anyways for me. And the bonus is this machine can cut it. So, you know, that's kind of where this thing is at. If you want to just move to the next one, that's kind of, the dude is just for scale. And so this is a big, you know, it's a big thing. And then the next one, and the other thing on this one, which I didn't do on my first one, is I'm doing an interior. So, you know, the difference being that I got a lot of plants. So I got a lot of reference photos and drawings that show what the interior looks like. So I don't have to kind of fantasize, etc. And so with that, you know, I'm sort of in the process of building. There's everything here. There's a radio room, there is a kitchen, there is a bathroom, there's the bedroom, and so on. Bedroom, there's beds anyways, bunk beds, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. This was taped. I got it now finally all glued actually. So here it is. And you can see it. It's a fairly sizable. Like this is 1/35. I mean, that's a big machine, right? I think it was 120 square feet or something like that. Is the size of the space of the apartment, if you will. So that's the project. Kind of excited about this.
Fantastic.
Really impressive.
Yeah, nice to see scratch building again.
Oh, by the way, the other thing I wanted to mention too, and I might actually ask you guys for some guidance on this too, is one of the things I need to do, because I'm not going to put any sort of transparent roof, etc. So the interior will only be seen through the windows or any open portals that I'm putting in. And so I'm going to have to light it. So I'm going to do probably nano LEDs, nano LEDs. And with some sort of diffusion to try to get it so you're not getting the spotlighting effects. But I don't know if any of you have experience with LED lighting for models and where you get your stuff, or if you get your stuff, because I found some places online you can get some absolutely tiny ones, like literally 0.5 of a millimeter wide, really tiny. That's the one that I'm thinking that you know, kind of the smaller the better type of thing.
First, just a word of advice: if you get them that small,
Yeah,
make sure they're pre-wired.
yes, they are. Yes, you're right.
Because if you have to solder the wires on, you'll go nuts.
Not doing that. Yeah, not doing that.
Yeah.
No. Good advice. Thank you.
Maurizio, Nick Saunders here from IPMS Ottawa. That's a really cool. Hi. It's a really cool vehicle, but I'm not. I don't know if I missed it. What is it?
So what that is so this thing, what they did is they build these vehicles to do exploration in Antarctica. So what they would do is they would have a crew of, like, this thing can sleep 8 people, and it was totally self-sufficient, and they would cruise for like 2,000-3,000 miles from the coast to inland to get to the South Pole for scientific research, exploration, and so on and so forth.
So what's the tank? Was it off of a certain tank body, or they
yeah,
just...
yes, it is. So the tank body, I'll show you what it is. Unfortunately, I have to buy another one of those kits, which is bloody expensive, but I had no choice. I mean, I could have scratch built all that too, but I had to get one of these guys. I don't know if you, okay, it's the mobile radar unit from the Russian mobile radar unit. And so it's basically a T-34. I don't know my tanks. So it's either T-34, maybe T-55. I forget, but it's the chassis of essentially the ATT tractor with an extra, I think it's an extra 2 wheels, because those have got 5 and this has got 7. So they stretch the chassis, they put an extra 2 wheels, and then on top of that, they put the entire structure. Yeah, it was, and one of the reasons why these things ultimately was replaced with a different design, which was a separated cab, driver cab, and engine from the living quarters, because one of the downsides of this is even though the engine was easier to access while you were inside, so you wouldn't freeze, the problem was when it was running, you get a lot of fumes into your sleeping cabin, and that was pretty. So. But I just think it's like, as a vehicle, it's like really pretty incredible. Like, for instance, that dome that you see there, that clear dome, which was a challenge because I didn't know how to solve that issue. And then I found some of these domes, etc., from Amazon. That clear dome was used for star navigation. So I don't know why they, it wasn't just the skylight so they could look at the sign. It was actually star navigation. They had a mast to do, like, to probably put things like naval radars. They were, I mean, they're amazing vehicles, big engine, 1,000 horsepower, and then they would weld all those steel fingers to the track to widen the track and lower the pressure on the snow, on pack ice and snow. So anyways, I mean, I just think the colors, the uniqueness, the, you know, the design, the history, they're all pretty fascinating to me.
Very good. Maurizio,
yeah.
If you're looking for LEDs, I would say the best place online, it's in the States, but it's basically evandesigns.com.
Okay. I think
they have pretty much everything you want, and they will they sell pre-wired kits with different lengths of wire. You can already get them wired to battery boxes. And the one cool thing about them is you can buy extra batteries. So if you use a 3-volt system, or if you ever use the coin batteries, the 3-volt coin batteries, you can basically buy for $5 you get 5 extra batteries, and it's the cheapest way to get those batteries, because like I use them all kinds of other things. So I basically, anytime I'm buying from them, I just buy a ton of extra batteries.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Thank you.
All right, up next, Paul E.
Hi, this is the 1954 Japanese movie poster depicting the prototype of Godzilla, like the carrying a girl, perhaps some allusion to King Kong. So Ultra Hobby in Japan made a kit out of it, resin. If you wanna, yeah, 42 pieces, I guess, non-scale resin, 34 centimeters high.
And nailed the lighting.
Photography, you know.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you.
Looks evil.
So it's just basically done in Tamiya, base coat, German gray, dry brush, a mixture of khaki and olive drab, I guess, for most of the skin. Had some troubles with parts fit, but you know, I think it worked out all right.
Or did you see that's resin?
Yeah. There's only maybe 50 of these ever made. It's the most expensive thing I bought in my whole life. I got it from a Japanese auction. There was I heard
join the club. Join the club.
Yeah. This is the actual clay prototype that they made back in the 50s. Oh, cool. So the model with respect to that might be 1-to-1 scale, but you know, with the girl in the hand, doesn't, you know, scale's been thrown to the wind. You'll notice
Godzilla looked pretty ugly at that time. Not really look like the modern Hollywood movie.
If you notice at the end of the tail, it stubs, right? And when I was going through the parts, I thought, oh, is this missing the tip of the tail? But no, that's how the maquette came out. So it was faithful to the original clay prototype with the stubby tail.
Very accurate.
Very cool.
Thank you. It was a lot of work. I don't have a lot of experience in resin. So I pre-painted a lot of the parts because I knew this thing is really, really big and heavy. And I knew I wouldn't be able to get to certain spots with an airbrush if I assembled the whole thing first. So it was done in pre-assemblies, but I ran into problems like with the seam work, you know, putting primer over, getting on the areas that were pre-painted, created a bit of a mess at times, but you know, worked out.
Good on you for actually building one, you know.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly. All right, thank you, Paul. And then I have another one from the other Paul. Oh, there he is.
Hey, how you doing? So I did this IPMS Ottawa, and there's a couple of guys on tonight from the club. They had the Bunny Blitz build over Easter, 4-day build. So I did manage to get this finished. This is a Tamiya Grant tank, one of the older, you know, 70s Tamiyas. So it worked out, you know, there's a few problems. I used the AK. The AK has one of these British Army sets. So it's got all the different colors. So I used that. That worked pretty good. Because, you know, it was a bit rushed, though, because you're trying to fit it in with other family events. And the masking, I didn't do as good a job. I got a bit of overspray. maybe because, you're trying to have people over for dinner and you're trying to mask it at the same time and paint it and what have you. And then that's where I ran into a bit of trouble. I tried to touch it up with a base coat and something went wrong there. But I decided whatever happened, I was going to finish this off one way or another.
Nice.
So it went, not too bad. And then I think on the last day, I maybe didn't really think it through too well. And I decided to do some oil paint on it, but then I wanted to put a flat coat on it like 2 hours later and wasn't too sure. Is the oil paint going to be dry enough to take the flat coat? How long do you have to let it dry? I'm not too sure. I'm like, well, that maybe isn't the best idea, but I hit it with a hair dryer a couple of times to try and dry it out, threw the flat coat on, and it seemed to work. So I tried a couple of different things. So I tried, the Panzer putty, MIG has one, right? That worked out pretty good for the camouflage. And I also tried for the gloss coat, this intermediate gauzy stuff.
You got to be careful when you're heat drying paint, because you're only drying the surface. The paint under the surface is not dry yet, and it will behave badly when you start adding other paints to it. So remember, you're only drying the surface.
That was the oil paint. Well, I tested it on the bottom. I put it on the bottom underneath. And then I put the flat coat on the bottom, and it seemed to go on okay. So then I did the rest. Well, at any rate, I had about an hour to finish it. So it's like, well, one way or another, I'll just see what happens. So it was a fun time.
So what's the scale on this?
It's a 1/35th Tamiya.
Okay.
It goes together pretty well, and it's an older kit. But yeah, it was great. The guys from IPMS Auto were great. They had a chat all weekend. A Zoom meeting most days. So I thank them for organizing it. It was pretty good.
Nice to see old stuff built too, Paul. You don't have it's nice to see the old stuff built.
Yeah.
You don't always have to buy the new, the new version, the new manufacturer.
Yeah, I think also for a blitz build, you have to figure out, how much you're going to spend on a kit. You're maybe not going to be able to finish it the way you want to finish it.
Yeah.
Right? If you're just trying to get it done for the, So, but it worked out good. It went together pretty well. It was a good time.
You gave us the perfect segue because Glenn's his entry from the Britain.
Thanks for Glenn to organizing all those guys. Yeah.
Hey, welcome. Yeah, we do one twice a year, so thank you, Paul, for joining it. This was my own. I started off with all the best intentions on Friday morning, and we had 4 days, and I thought I could whip this off, no problem. But then 2 dental emergencies on Friday night and Monday morning dashed my hopes of finishing this thing, unfortunately.
Didn't you guys have a power failure at one point too?
I think the people in Gatineau did. We didn't have it here at me south of the city. But no, I had a root canal that went bad. Yeah.
Lost about 9 hours of power.
So this kit that I chose is a special hobby kit. It was first released as a new kit in 2018. 2019, they came out with this, what they call the high-tech version. And essentially what it is some really nicely molded resin parts for the internals of the pulse jet engine. You might also see this on the shelves right now because Revel reboxed it in 2021, and it's currently on shelves. It's the same kit without the fine resin bits. Special hobby means special considerations have to be taken with these kits. I spend most of the time that I did work on it working on seams and alignment issues. Rescribing some panel lines as they crossed over seams, and just a lot of filling and sanding. So that's as far as I got, almost to the end of construction. And then, life gets in the way. So I've yet to finish this thing off. Overall, it's a 32nd scale kit. Actually, all in all, the detail is pretty good.
How long is the model, Glenn?
Oh, maybe 10 inches long.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's about that long. And it's fairly nice. Me being me, I wanted to add a lot of, extra little details just to personalize it and whatnot. So out came the brass bits and niggly bits. But the resin pieces were just utterly fantastic. Oh, took an hour or so to to get all the flash cleaned off, and I actually found parts that were, you know, intermixed with the flash. But they just turned out just utterly gorgeous. So fortunately, the way I approached this thing, I essentially cut it apart so it's going to make it easier to paint.
So are you going to scratch build the 30-second scale ramp?
Funny guy. No, I'm going to wait for the Tacom model at a different scale. Thank you very
That'll
much.
be a lot longer than 10 inches.
I think so. It'll be the length of, you know, a small table. But
Brandon, is this
interior
the same
too.
company that does the one that has a cockpit, the V1 with the cockpit?
I think it is. I got a couple of these V1 Buzz Bombs and an Onyx one. Some of them have cockpits, some of them don't. Some of them are 32nd scale, some of them are 48, some of them are 35th. So there's a whole raft of them out here. This one I just happened to buy on a whim because it had high tech on it. And it was worth the extra cost, but again, it's special hobby. So has all the issues that special hobby kits do. Would I recommend it? Yeah, why not?
Are you going to get the Tacom one, I think, that has the ramp?
I think I will because I am a glutton for punishment, as most of my modeling friends know. And that you can get the ramp, the launching ramp, and the V1 itself that has an interior, I think. So lots of opportunities for scratch building there. Hopefully that's out this year.
And we do have a couple more minutes here. Glenn, you wanted to send over kind of, I guess these were the top 3 contestants or winners from the contest?
Yeah. The Bunny Blitz build that we had went from late in the day on April 14th to end of the day on April 18th. We had 34 people who signed up, and finishers, we had 18 finishers,
Wow.
which
Nice.
is huge.
That's great.
Paul being one of them.
Yeah,
Great.
Mine doesn't look
Yeah,
as good as that though, but yeah.
No,
So
come
we
on,
just-
that's great. It's great.
So we just announced our top 3. We finally tallied the votes. It was very, very close for the top 3 finishers. But Frank Donati got top honors with his Yad Panther in 35th scale. And second place went to Paul Eastwood for a mini art utility truck, I guess it would be.
That's cool.
And our third place finisher was our own Brian Latour. So I don't even know what this is, but it looks really cool. Brian, if you don't know him, he's a utterly fantastic figure painter, and he's starting to get into Gundam and interwar planes like French and Spanish and stuff like that. So he's really expanded out his catalog of models that he's undertaking, and he just does a bang up job on them all.
He's becoming dangerous.
Only to our egos.
Before I do that, I just want, this is my Spitfire. I think it's like a Mark, 13 or something, but it's a Reese Version. And if you look at the camera window, you can use a product called Micro Crystal Clear. A lot of you have tried it, but you can just dip a little bit of this in with on the edge of a toothpick, and you run it in a circle around the little portal, and you get what's just the most beautiful flat, clear, transparent, thin window.
What scale is that, Mark?
It's 1/48. It's the Airfix kit. You can see it's got no it's got the bigger propeller and no weapons, post-war markings.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Gang, I was supposed to be on, but I've had a neighbor call with a car problem, and I'm going to go do a rescue. So I will be back later. Please don't think I'm being rude. If I don't see you the rest of the night, I'll talk about NorEastCon next meeting.
Okay,
So,
Jonathan.
My apologies, guys. It was great time seeing you, Mark. Cheers.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Oh, cheers, guys.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm just going to go through some slides on NorEastCon. I thought it was a big success. I mean, it wasn't a perfect show. There was some problems, but I think we got by it. Mainly the problems were created by just an overwhelming kind of turnout that we weren't used to. We should have known better because I guess it was similar to Heritage Con in that there was just a lot of pent-up demand out there to go to a model show. Jonathan, I don't know if Harvey got to the Slater, which is moored in the Hudson, and that's a destroyer escort. The amazing thing about these ships is how thin the hull. They weren't built with any kind of armor. I think even the Sullivans in Buffalo has only got like half an inch of armor on the hull, which is basically nothing. So there was close to 500 models and 100 modelers. And one of the challenges was these were all show pieces. It wasn't a typical show where you could quickly eliminate a handful of models and just focus on the really high-end stuff. Everything was the result, I think, of COVID and spending a lot of time at home, YouTube's, and honing your skills. And the stuff they brought was really fun to look at, but it was an unbelievable challenge to try and get it all judged. And that includes all of the work that that was in competition for the best Canadian. I don't know if you recognize this piece, but Harvey brought his feature article input for a fine scale modeler and entered it as an exhibition piece, but a lot of people really liked it.
Thanks, Mark.
And you might recognize this fellow, but the seminars were publicized really well, and I think that might have had a lot to do with the attendance. There was another seminar by some guy named Steve Zaloga, but the marquee guy here is Harvey.
There's no dress code in this show, that's for sure, with what I'm wearing. Yeah, it was great. It was fun. Really fun. I probably had a lot more fun delivering it and making it as making a model. Really, it was great. So thanks to you, thanks to Tim, thanks to Brian.
Sure.
So Harvey, you recorded it. Are you going to post it?
Yeah, in fact, just before the meeting, I put it into one of my film editing, and so Mark, I'm gonna. It's ready. It's almost ready to go. So the session will be filmed. And I know that Tim and Brian and I think Steve Tycho, they're gonna post the screenshots in PDF, but there'll also be the film version of the presentation, so that'll be up there as well.
Yeah, that was a big draw, and everybody loved it. Unfortunately, I was hammered with judging and I couldn't attend, so I'm going to really appreciate the effort you put into the film or the film version.
And thank you, Mark, for sponsoring the Best Canadian. You're so humble. You were the guy that did that. So thank you.
So, I'm going to talk about that now.
Great. Great segue.
You might know this gentleman, but Roy won with his 1/35th scale Sherman Firefly. And here's him accepting the award. He's probably the only other guy in the show that wore a sports jacket like me. By this time, I was so steaming from judging, I just took it off. But it's just a beautiful piece. Actually, Roy sent me a message. He thinks that maybe a higher authority might have guided the hands of the judges in the direction of this model. It's a dedication to his mother, who died at 83. So he's using this model as part of a life remembrance ceremony. And apparently it has 83 pieces of hemp in the camo.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I've never heard of, I mean, it's just terrific work. It stands on its own, but maybe there was something from the hereafter leading us in this direction.
Now, Mark, if I might, I've known Roy since I was 15, and I've had the luxury of and pleasure of meeting his parents too when I was younger. So there's a connection for me as well. So that's great.
Well, Well, Harvey, I couldn't have done this without you and Jonathan's help identifying all the Canadian pieces because they were intermixed everywhere. So let me just move on unless there's any questions to show you some of the other great entries. And I don't think I got them all, but I think there were a little bit over 10 entries. And these are, you know, obviously the Americans that wanted to do to compete for the award. So this is Jonathan. He did not win the best Canadian, but he certainly did pretty well with some of his other models. It was a very tough decision from the judges because there was so many good models. I think that's a real challenge for IPMS now because the quality of the models and the tables is so good post-COVID that there may have to be some changes to a more open judging system because I just wish I'd brought a couple more trophies. I just couldn't believe how good the workmanship was.
Oh, good. Oh, wow.
This is Jonathan's model. It's what, maybe Harvey 2 inches long?
Yeah, it's pretty small. I'm surprised he's not blind.
Didn't he leave a magnifying glass next to it so we could look at it? Because I think my eyes weren't working.
Yeah, it's really
That was
tiny.
awesome.
Oh, wow, that's great. That's great.
Like crazy.
This is another entry by Jonathan. Just these pieces all could easily have won the best Canadian, and they won other awards for this this show. I think this was the debut of Harvey's S-boat, and it drew a lot of gazes and people saying, "Wow, that's really amazing work."
Thanks, Mark. Really had a fun time at the show.
Wow.
This is all scratch built, right?
Yeah.
This was in the diorama category, and it's just to show you how tough it was for my judging teams to make the decision on this model. It was just an unbelievably terrific diorama. You can see that they're pulling a wounded gunner out, as well as trying to fight a fire on one of the engines.
Mark,
what scale was that?
Well, that's a good point you brought up because it's 1/32nd scale B24, but it's 1/35th scale figures and vehicles. And normally that never seems to work. Like you'll see a dragon, you'll see a dragon.
Yeah.
You'll see a dragon wagon and somebody straps a, you know, BF-109 fuselage on it, and you go, "Hey, something's wrong here." But when you lay it out like this, it seems to work well.
Yeah, that's Matt McKeevy's work. That on the left side, you see the little fire engine with a hose. That's pretty much scratch built, and the figures are all like his own, like they're sculpted. They're so there's a lot of work in this one.
We made it sculpted. Sorry, what do you mean, Harvey? What do you mean sculpted?
He's put his own poses in, and you know how the figure guys put wires in with different arms and things. That's what he's done here. So that's why they've got that unique looking. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. You may not. You may know. His family's got a connection to this photo. I can't remember what it was. Like his grandfather. I can't.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
He's got the story was very strong in this. And believe it or not, there were things, nitpicky things, and that's I think one of the challenges IPMS has now with their judging system. To me, this is a gold medal work.
Yeah,
but you can only have one gold medal. So
yeah. There were some discussions earlier about, and again, not sorry to interrupt you, Mark, but to adopt a fit and finish only judging rule, which basically then doesn't really take into account like the work here that Matt has done, right? And we've got to maybe have a debate on that and flush it out to include fit, finish, and scope of effort or complexity for another discussion.
Yeah, that is a highly charged debate, but I think this was an inflection point, and there's going to be cases where maybe two models get gold. Otherwise, the judging teams, and there's fewer judges that people want to judge. They're going to be there all day debating
For
one
sure.
or the other.
For sure. Nice piece.
This was the winning diorama.
Oh gosh.
And it was a marshalling yard spring of very late war, World War II. I think these were American troops liberating this German locomotive.
Is the locomotive also scratch or is it kit?
I don't know if any of this is scratched, to tell you the truth, but the feeling was that the workmanship and the weathering was stronger here. So, hey, look again. There were things with each that could easily disqualify them, but one had to be a winner, and only one, unfortunately.
Wow, they're both amazing.
Yeah.
I believe this was, Harvey, the best in show.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's actually on a roll. It won MosquitoCon Best in Show. It won Best in Show down in Virginia.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So and so this is 3 shows in a row, but you can see it's just terrific work.
Is that done by that guy Mike Spakowski or something like? Does that name ring? I think that's him.
Yeah, I don't know. I
think he's from North Carolina or South Carolina. Yeah, talented builder. He came up with Nelson Key from Virginia, I think.
Hey, Harvey, I got a question. So you were at both Heritage Con and Norris Con.
Yeah.
It sounds like Norris Con was maybe a little smaller than Heritage Con.
Yeah, just a tad smaller. I think Heritage Con Alan's not, I don't know if Alan's on the call. I recall they really had a large number of like 700 or something again.
Yeah.
And Mark, what did you say was on this one? Close to 600? Five something?
560 models.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah.
Like just under 100, and I'm sure they'll recount that and like the last American election and come up with another number. But they'll probably get to over 100. And the walk-ins were unbelievable. They had local newspaper articles on it. And of course, Brian Fowler did an outstanding job, as well as Harvey, in getting this out on social media.
But in terms of, I was going to ask you, Harvey, in terms of, your gut feel, quality of the models, one versus the other, were they more or less equivalent, or would you say that there was higher quality in one versus the other? Like,
I would say, well, it's breaking it down. I would say that there was a lot of really good work on this table. There's no doubt. And Mark is correct. And I'm not just saying that as a passing statement. I'm a blunt kind of guy. Sometimes you have shows where, unfortunately, you're kind of picking from a vast group of, they're okay models, but a lot of these were like so difficult and so well done, like aircraft. And Mark's correct. I mean, to adopt perhaps another debate, open judging system, and to also account for scope of effort, for scratch building and things like that. That notwithstanding, the talent at this show was, it was really, really, really good.
And that judging system is in play now, I actually think, because Nick, who's a chair of NENY and NorrisCon, said that he was supportive of a system that spread the love a little more. Because if you think about open judging and IPMS 1, 2, 3, the open judging isn't just like AMP. That's just too labor intensive. But you could do a 1, 2, 3 where you just call it a day. You just say, look, these are both pretty good, and give them both golds or give them both silvers, whatever the case may be. But I think that's what the future holds for our hobby.
Yeah, I think so. And I think slowly many people are accepting the fact that fit and finish needs to also include, complexity, scope of effort, those types of things. But we're moving in the right direction.
I may suggest too, guys. I was at NorrisCon. Incredible bunch of models, and people there are fantastic. I come away with this moving, been around the hobby for so many years, and with technology and everything that's going on, the judging system, it may change, it may not change. I think that just because of some things people said to me, that maybe we need to also when you have a form you fill out and you put it on the table, your name's not on it and your IPMS affiliation, nothing's on it, just a number.
Yeah.
And just for pure transparency, because there was a couple things said to me over the weekend in NorEastCon, and I've heard this before too. And I'm just thinking ahead. We move ahead here, and things change as we go. But it was a fantastic show.
Yeah.
Great bunch of people. The models were just incredible.
Yeah, that's
Just
a good point. Good point.
Very tough. Very
Yeah,
tough
that's a good point. If I might echo that too. I mean, there's a lot more shows where they're just putting a number on it without the person's name. Now, it's a small community. You do know people's work, but at least you remove that name and perhaps just put a number on it or something else to identify. But that's a good point.
That's what they had at Heritage Con. It was just a number.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, I
What we
like
have at the
that. I
London
like
show
that.
too, just a number.
Just a number.
But anyways,
Okay.
wonderful show. Wonderful show, Mark.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
great
And
job.
thanks for coming down.
Fantastic.
It really, yeah.
I-
This was a, go ahead.
I think one of the big things that will be a big deciding factor will be this year's Nats, now that it's really wide open. It'll be interesting to see what some of the qualities like there.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah, I think there definitely needs to be, and I'm hearing that, from all over the world, when we get comments on the podcast and that, yeah, there is, there's proponents for all different judging systems, but there is a change coming. And I think just, we have to work with it and figure out a way that's going to try and keep the majority of people happy, but also the majority of the people who want to enter willing to enter.
Yep. Good way of saying it. Yep.
Well said, yes.
Yeah, well
yes.
said. Yep.
There was obviously the world situation comes into play, and here was a couple Ukrainians. They awarded a special to this young man here with a MiG-29, Ghost of Kiev, and the flag is actually a battle flag, not from the current conflict, but 2014 around the Crimea.
Oh,
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. So this was a flag that was actually in the front lines of the conflict. I guess it's signed by the different people in the battle group. Constantine on the left, his family is there. He's extremely worried. He's spending a lot of time in the relief efforts. He drove back to Poughkeepsie with me. I dropped him off at the train station. But this stuff, it's a small world, and you turn around, you run into people that are really affected by this.
Yeah.
And of course, model shows, forget the models for a second. It's about relationships and seeing people. And it's been a while. I don't think I'd seen Harvey since 2019 at AMPS in Buffalo. And, we've spent all this time on in Zoom calls. It's just nice to sort of make that connection again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Totally fabulous seeing everyone.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Eric.
Great presentation. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. That was such a fun weekend.
yes.
Yeah, and thanks for your support, really, and to Jonathan and Harvey for helping me with the identifying the models. So that